Larry King.
Yeah, and right. That was the situation then. So even though it's certainly, and it's not common, but it's not new. It's not a new thing.
I remember the Vietnam War.
Okay,
there was a big protest about the Vietnam War, and the college students were coming out, and they were really coming against the government and the military.
Right.
The military was being
and there was a lot of peaceful rioting or protesting, but then there was the rioting as well, right?
Yeah,
People get out of hand, and so that's not new.
No.
It's certainly not common.
It can be disturbing.
Yeah, it is disturbing.
Yeah.
But we don't want to lose focus, and I think that's what we talked about the other day. We don't want to lose focus in what our role is. What hill do we want to die on, right?
Yes, sir.
As Christians,
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we're not getting caught up in all of the division that the world, or when I say the world, what I'm going to speak very plainly about the media.
Okay.
The media, to me, their job, and it's very clear to me, their job is to cause division. I read a headline. I didn't even read the article. I just read the headline, which I told everybody, don't read the headlines anymore, and I found myself doing it. And I don't remember. I tried to find it again so I could bring it up tonight. But they presented the facts, and then they presented their commentary.
Okay.
And they literally told us how we should feel about this fact.
You know, I see it as an opportunity to counteract that, to not speak about our opinion, but speak about the Word of God.
So as ambassadors, what I'm saying is we can't get caught up because they're trying to divide us.
That's right.
And so in the ministry, we talk about the ministry of reconciliation. That is, to me, that is the bringing together.
That's the bringing
together. It's not the separation of, right? No. And so the world wants to divide us. And their agenda, the agenda of the political parties, and I'll say this, the agenda of the political parties is to divide us. They want us divided.
That's true.
I believe it.
That's the nature of politics.
Right. And I say it's my opinion, but that's what they're doing.
Well, even when I was a boy and my dad and I were standing in line to vote in the Woodlands, I was 18 years old,
you
and
told
he
me
asked me who I was going to vote for, and I told him, and he pitched a fit and screaming at me right there in front of everybody in line to go vote. So, yeah, it's an emotional thing. It's not a new thing.
Yeah. Well, here's what, you had put this on the Facebook the other day. I had saw it on another page or another post. I didn't read it until actually you posted it. But there are, and it kind of went along with what I said the other day, is not every topic that we bring up or that we'll preach, you'll preach, or I preach, is political.
Okay.
Now, our country wants us, the political parties want everything to be political.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it seems like if we start, well, let me just get to the post that you posted. There are 4 issues that typically are represented in the political parties, 4 dominating issues, right?
Yes,
that the church would be concerned about.
All right.
Moral issues, right? I mean, talk about, not foreign policy, not those type of issues, but the 4 issues that Christians would be most concerned about is, number 1, the sanctity of marriage. Number 2, the sanctity of life, right? Anti-abortion, right? or pro-abortion, whatever. Number 3, racial equality, and number 4, helping the poor.
There you go.
So if you split the parties, the Republicans and the Democratic parties, right?
2 on one end.
2 on one side and 2 on the other, right?
At the exclusion of the other 2.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what they say is, and this is what they want us, this is what the world is teaching us, and this is what the media is telling us to think. Oh, that is, that if I vote a certain way, then I am not for helping the poor.
I got you. And vice versa.
And vice versa, right? Yeah. So if I vote the other party, then I must be pro-abortion and
not
sanctity of marriage, not husband and one wife, right? So, but those are moral issues. Those are not political issues.
That's true.
They want us to, but they want to divide us.
Okay.
And that's what it's all about, because I believe that if they can divide us and cause us to now, this is not just, this is, I've got to try to explain this. Our children, Brother Still, are growing up in this culture.
Yes, sir.
And so this is more than just me teaching you here on a Wednesday night. Your children are being raised in a culture
Okay.
that it's either left or right. You either believe this and you have to hate that.
Right.
There's
That's
no
what they
middle
think.
ground. There's no room for toleration
Right.
at all,
Yeah, that's not good for humanity.
especially for the church when we are supposed to be reconciling the world to Christ, right?
Yes,
We're
sir.
supposed to be a mediator almost to bring them to. So how could we, if we fall into this trap of division and hatred and dividing brothers and sisters against sisters and opinions against opinions, how will we ever reconcile the world to a belief system even?
We would only be able to reconcile some, not all.
Exactly. So here's, and this is the scripture I brought up here in Mark chapter 2, verse number 15. And it came to pass that as Jesus sat at meat in the house of many tax collectors and sinners.
And sinners.
Okay.
Okay.
So I want you to think about that. Jesus, who represented total holiness, total truth, right? No sin found in him. No guile was in his mouth, right? He's sitting there eating with tax collectors and sinners.
All right.
And he's not offended at
contradiction.
all,
Yeah, not offended.
not having any problem.
And he's not offending anybody. with
And he's
sin.
not offending anybody else. So people who have to say, and we talked about this, there are preachers, Brother Stone, I see them. They're preachers who will make a stand against certain things publicly.
Yeah.
Now, when I say that, I mean, we have to stand for something and we have to stand for righteousness, but not to the point where we have to divide and we push people away.
Yes, sir.
People already know. When they already hear I'm a Christian, they already know I'm pro-life and sanctity of marriage and one husband and one wife, right? They already know that. I don't have to tell them that.
Sure.
Jesus
There's no
didn't have to
reason
tell.
talk about
What's
They
that?
knew what he stood for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he was still there, and he wasn't offending anybody. And when the scribes and the Pharisees saw him eat with the publicans and the sinners, they said unto the disciples, "How is it that he can eat and drink with the publicans and the sinners?" Again, the world was the same then as it is now. 2,000 years ago, they said, "We don't understand. You can't be that way and still hang out with them and still relate to them, right?"
He treated them all the same.
Right. They were confused. They were thinking, where's the division?
What side are you on?
Yeah, what side are you on anyway? That's what they were asking.
That's right.
I thought you voted this way, or I thought you believed this, or even they want to put us into a racial bracket. If
right.
you're white, then you are this. If you are Asian, then that means you're this. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
So they didn't understand. They're like, how is this be? And then Jesus answered him. He heard them talking, and he said this. He said, "They that are whole have no need of a physician, but they that are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but to the sinners to repentance." If people are sick, they need a doctor. If they're not sick, they don't need a doctor, right? He says, "I came to call the sinners."
Spiritually sick.
Right. I came to call those that needed me. I'm with those that need me. So if we take a stand against political thinking and all of these things, and I say you have to, when I'm saying a public presentation, Jesus did not respond that way.
No, sir.
He didn't put on his Facebook page, if he did have one, "If you don't think like me, then defriend me."
Something wrong with you. That's the way people do it, right? They reject what they don't understand either. So a lot of times we get criticized for what we believe and how we live our life without them even asking us why we do that,
Right.
right? I've had them say, "I would never go to your church." And I'd say, "Well, why not?" "Well, y'all are different." And I'm going to say, "Well, talk about it." And they won't talk about it. And I wonder why that is. You know what I mean? It's that division thing.
Yeah.
But I tell you, well, come feel the presence of God, and you'll see that we're not going to judge you. We're not going to get on to you. We're just going to love you. Love is the key here, isn't it?
It is the
Pastor?
key.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love is the key. And that means that we have to love them no matter what they think, no matter what they believe. no matter if they've had 10 abortions or promoted or whatever, or they own an abortion clinic
right?
or whatever.
And people have to know we're sincere because they'll pick up on it right away. If
right
we're
away.
thinking,
If I'm here
Mhm.
to convince you that you're a sinner. That's not reconciling the world. That's not love. That's not trying to get into the hearts of the people. That's just projecting another political view. To them, it's just another political view.
That's true.
So what?
Or
So
religious view.
oh, yeah, right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Any
it's a
opposing
division.
view
It's a
then would
division.
be
It's a division, yeah,
because now
divisive.
everything's political, right? Even I got up here the other day and I preached, and Lily, she said, I forget if I talked about this to you guys or in a private setting, but she said, "Did you get all your politics out?"
Did all the politics.
Yeah, and she was just because she said, "Well, you talked about politics." I said, "I didn't talk about politics. I talked about the Bible. I talked about moral issues. I talked about how we can, but because I spoke of the media and I spoke of different things and the COVID-19 and I spoke of opposing views, it's all of a sudden all of us view it as political, and
Yeah.
it doesn't."
Yeah. I talked to a guy today who's talking about ethics. Ethics is doing the right thing even when nobody's looking. And he talked about selling an item he had listed, and what he didn't realize is it was actually would sell for a lot more than what he listed it for. And so somebody said, "Hey, I'd like to buy your item," and he
Yeah.
said, "Look, you know, I'll let you buy it." And then somebody else said, "Hey, I'll give you more money for it." He said, "You know, the ethics of it says that I'm going to sell it for what I told the first guy, because I'm not going to jack it up knowing that I can." And that, to me, is what we have to show the world. We have to show the world that we're going to do the right thing, even when nobody else does.
Right. That's right. So how does the church respond to the division of the world? How do we respond to that?
I would say don't get caught up in it, for one thing.
Yeah.
You know, what can I do for you today? Is there something I can help pray with you about? Or do you need any food? Or do you have everything you need at home? It's just a matter of showing genuine love for their personal cares and their needs.
So let me say this too. If we're navigating this,
Okay?
I don't have to stand on my soapbox every single time I have an opinion
Okay? That's right.
and broadcast it to the world. I don't have to do that. I mean, when I'm talking about social media or even
Yes, sir.
and people think it's social media, it's not public. It is absolutely
Mm-hmm.
a public setting.
Yes, sir.
It's not a church setting. It is a public setting. It's like if I go to the mall and I start broadcasting my opinion about such and such.
Mm-hmm.
Is that reconciling people? Is that trying to figure out how people really feel and really think and why they think the way they think? We talked about Stephen Covey the other day about the 7 habits of highly effective people. One of the habits is to seek first to understand
Yes. Yes. Seek to understand.
before
Yeah.
we are
Being
understood.
understood, yes.
Right. So what does that mean? It means, well, I want you to tell me everything that you believe about this subject so I can convince you you're wrong. No, that's not what seek ye first understand. It means to truly try to figure out why this person thinks the way they think, not to change their minds or for that, to genuinely, I care about why you feel the way you feel. I want to understand the reason why you wear a mask and I don't.
Yeah. And how
See,
many
now that's a
times-
political issue.
How many times have we done that and we realized they had a good point? I've done that
Exactly.
quite a bit. You know, that's a good point. I've not thought of
How
that.
many times, we talked about the other day, how
Yeah.
many times have we stood firm on a subject that we firmly believed we were right and ended up being,
We found out
we
weren't.
found out that there's another more logical way of thinking.
That's true. And
I've
that
been- I've
should
been a-
tell us right there to be a good listener,
Mhm.
but not one to, you know, I see a lot of people when you're talking to them, they're waiting for you to get finished so they can tell you what they think. And
Yeah.
I think Jesus was able to listen passively without that. He just listened to what they had to say, and then he responded. And I think being a good listener helps us to be a better reconciler.
Yeah. It's
Because
just like
we-
the
we
woman
can
caught
underst-
in
Go ahead.
adultery. She was caught in sin.
Mhm.
And what was his position? His position wasn't to tell her what she's done wrong or to teach her the immoral ratifications of all that she has
Point
done.
out
Don't
her-
you realize what you've done? If you do this, you're going to hurt people who love. Don't you understand? He could have done all that, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
He just his response was to help.
Yes.
I'm going to help you.
Yes. He said, "Go and sin no
yeah,
more."
go and sin. He said, neither do I condemn thee. I mean, of all the people who could stand on a soapbox and preach to the woman,
Right. When Jesus
it was
wrote in the-
Jesus who could have done that, but he
Exactly.
didn't.
Yes.
So his response was that, again, as the reconciler, I'm going to pull you in. I'm going to pull you close. I'm not going to condemn you either. Let the world condemn you. Let those people condemn you, but I'm not going to condemn you. We talked about this. Before I came to the Lord, I was an atheist till I was 30 years old. And I was a full-grown man, and I didn't even know what was sin. I thought abortion was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have been raised in a culture that said it was okay.
Yeah.
And so, but we Christians tend to we can get so angry at those people
Right.
because, they're killing babies, right? But in their minds, that's why they were trained. They were just trained it's okay. And we're the oddballs who think it's not okay. So how are we going to convince them to bring pickets to the parades and say you're killing babies and do that? That's not changing a thing.
Yeah.
That's
think you gotta
pouring
find-
condemnation onto people. That's not reconciling the world. So think about what would Jesus do if he came across somebody who had an abortion, for instance.
Thinking of the woman at the well,
Right.
right? He asked her for water and
Uh-huh.
a drink, and she said, "Who are you
He-
asking me for a drink?" Go ahead.
He went right to the need.
Went right to it, right? So he didn't say you shouldn't be here, or he didn't go into all the history and all the. He met her need.
That's right.
He
He
met her
looked
need.
past the sin.
Yes,
He acknowledged your sin. He says, I already know that there's sin in your life.
yes,
And then already know. Okay, now you're going to. And then he started talking about thirst. And he started talking about drink. And he started talking about the need. And he went straight to the need. The woman caught in the midst of adultery, he went straight to the need. These people right here, he said, they're sick. These people are sick. They need me. And he wasn't there preaching to them and telling them all that they have done wrong and that they're going to burn in the lake of fire if they don't change, right?
yes, sir.
So how do we react to those who don't agree with the way we agree? How do we respond? How do we interact with those?
I think
we
we need to be understanding. I can remember times when I thought I had a position on something. I was angry about it. By the way, we focus on people's behavior rather than the need.
Right, exactly.
Anger isn't necessarily a sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is one letter away from dangers. So I've had
Yeah.
people, I'd ask them, okay, so anger is a passionate desire for something to be different. So a lot of people on the street protesting today are passionately desiring that things change in a certain arena, and that's a legitimate thing.
Yeah, right.
So Jesus realized that she had some things in her life that she needed to change.
Yeah.
But because of the division between the Samaritans and the Jews, see, there was a political thing right there at the well, because he was in that area of town, and normally he didn't go there, and immediately it came up as an issue, a political issue, really,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
a cultural issue.
Right.
And so what happens then? He said, hey, you've got a need, and I'm here to meet it.
Yeah.
And then when she went back and said, he told me everything about myself that I'd ever done, then great revival broke out
Right.
because he didn't criticize and condemn. He just, He showed compassion.
Right. He
How do you
showed
show
compassion.
compassion to someone that's angry? That would be a good question to ask, right? How do you
Or
show
they don't. We talked about this the other day too.
Yeah, go
People
ahead.
get angry at other people. I'm talking about Christians will get angry at people of the world, and it's easy to because if they're. But I mean that I've seen people get angry at other members of the family or of the church who don't raise their kids the way that they think they need to be raised. So the diversity of our.
Topics are unlimited.
Yeah, exactly.
You can be at odds, yeah.
So somebody doesn't think the way we think, whatever that is. Now, raising your children at this point, I don't think is political yet. Is it? Could be.
It has been in the past, yeah.
If it's not today, it will be tomorrow.
Yeah.
But anybody who's different than us, that's diversity, that's difference. That's the difference of all of us individuals.
Yes, sir.
But when somebody's different than us, I've seen, I mean, get angry, veins pop out, and blood pressure gets really high because they're. So how do we navigate that? What
Well-
would be a way for us to deal with frustration? We're frustrated at the people who don't think the way that we think, or that we think they're stupid.
I don't know. As far as me, like, I remember when I first got in church, there was Christians at my work would come along and they'd say, "Hey, I hear you're a Christian." I'd say, "Yes, sir." And they'd say, "Oh, well, you go to this and do that?" And I said, "No, I don't do that." And they said, "Well, why not?" And I said, "Because I don't have a desire to go to those places that I used to go." And they would get really mad at me, the veins popping out of their head,
right.
the neck, and they'd say, "Well, you're crazy. There's something wrong with you." And I'm like, why can't I have my own conviction? See, a conviction is something that God gives us, right? And not everybody's convictions are going to be exactly the same. So you might like to drive a white car, and I drive a black car. And because I don't have a white car, then something wrong, you know? So we really need to get off of ourselves. I think the key, brother, is to get back on the Lord, get our eyes on the Lord, and how can I introduce the Lord to those people in a way that they can receive Him?
Yeah, that's good. Does anybody have a comment out here? Anybody that dealt with anything this week, or maybe the last month or so, how you may have interacted with somebody who didn't agree with you, or anything like that?
Any
Or somebody has,
suggestions?
yes, sir?
Dealing with neighbors and telling them that they asked what kind of church I went to and all that, and they said, well, and I'd invite them to church and stuff, and they would say, well, I'm Methodist. And I would say, well, do you know the oneness of God? Or do you believe in the Trinity? I try to explain that to them, and they will say, well, I don't know about all that, but they said that they feel that, you know, like you say, they're right, and you don't really know what you're talking, but then I bring out, you know, like you've been teaching us in Acts, and so they want to try to skip over that, but me, I'm a little pushy, and I like to keep adding it to it, but sometimes, like
Yeah.
you say, you have to try not to just push it on them.
Right, that's right. That's so I would say
Sometimes
that.
it makes you want to because they don't grasp it like
This
they should.
is what I tell people. If I tell them I'm a preacher or whatever, they always ask what church do you go, what denomination, whatever. And I tell them I'm licensed with the United Pentecostal Church International, and they say, well, I'm a Methodist. Well, I'm not going to immediately go into the differences between our religious beliefs. I'm going to skirt that issue as far as I can,
Right.
and I'm just going to say that's fantastic. We've got Methodists and Nazarenes and Catholics and
Yeah.
atheists. We got all kinds of people come to our church. You got to come. You would love it. And so we want to get them connected to us and to the before we start talking about
You
how-
made them feel welcome.
Yeah.
No, regardless of the differences.
regardless of the difference.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing would be this for anybody. We had a Jeep. Remember, we had the Jeep guys here.
Yeah.
And I told the Jeep guys, I said, well, maybe after the Jeep show, I said maybe some of your guys will come to church. And he says, no. He says, you don't want our guys coming to church. He says, we're not church people. And I said, bro, neither were none of us.
That's right.
I said, we were all just same as you. I said, hey, you are welcome to come. And after like the second year or the third year, he was out there asking me, he says, all right, if I came to church, what would I wear? What would I have to wear? I said, bro, I'm going to wear a suit because I'm a preacher. I said, but you can wear anything you want. So again, he's looking for us. What are the divisions? What separates us from you? Nothing. Just come on. Just come on. Just come on. And so that's what. So once we start to develop a relationship with people,
Yes.
and then once we start to, they know that we love them unconditionally, whatever their background is. Then we can start talking to them about what the Bible. Then that's the reconciliation
Yes.
of the lost world to a holy God. And it's got to be tactful.
I think about Brother McNeil when he worked at, is it Hughes Company? You worked at Hughes? Yeah, when he worked they called him the preacher, right? Yeah. And so everybody knew who he was and what he stood for, and he would have a Bible, and when he wasn't looking, they would take his Bible and throw it away. And so he didn't pitch a fit and get mad, or he just got another Bible and brought it to work, and I think it was very effective the way you handled it, because they were trying to find a way to get him upset. You know, I can't believe you threw my Bible away. That's a bad thing. But he didn't. He just kept being who he was, kept loving, And I know for a fact that this man was very instrumental in winning people to the Lord, him and his wife. And all of us that have been around a while have learned how to do that. I know at BJ, they would make fun of you in front of all the other workers, but when you got them off to the side, they would say, hey, I really respect you. I admire your commitment. Would you please pray for my family? And so a lot of times the setting is important as well.
Can't win them with beating the Bible over their head.
No.
You've got to first be their friend, and they got to know that first of all, they can't upset you,
Right.
and that's different.
Yeah.
And when you ask them questions, and ask questions is most important thing. Discover why. I said this the other day. This was the political sermon I preached, I guess, is there's two types of people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The type of people that run outside to take pictures of the storm,
Mm-hmm.
and the ones that hide under their bed.
Yeah.
Well, the guys that run outside and chase the storm, we can think about all those people that are hiding under their bed, and we can get mad at them, and we can think, man, they're bringing our world down, and they're causing fear, and they're causing their kids they're raising a whole generation of people who are going to be bound in fear. I mean, we can really get ourselves worked up, and if the media was there to help us get our worked up and tell us how bad it is for those people who are hiding, instead of getting mad at those people, why don't we go ask them? Why are you so afraid of the storm?
And they probably have a good answer.
And they'll have an answer. They'll
have a
say,
good
well,
answer.
when I was little, such and such happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? That didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
Had that happened to me, I might very well be one of those crazy people hiding under the bed. If you're a crazy person hiding under the bed, you think that we're out there chasing the storm,
Crazy
and
people.
we've lost our minds, and we're raising a generation of reckless and crazy people. Go ask the question. Why is it that you're not afraid?
Brother Willie used to say they will care about what you know when they know that you care. And I think
Right.
the key to that whole thing is knowing to care about them genuinely without any thing expected in return.
Yeah,
Because
there
they're
is a
gonna-
reason,
They'll be drawn to that.
but people act the way they act and think the way they act.
Yes.
And to be an effective communicator, an effective person, the 7 habits of highly effective people, one of the 7 habits,
Mm-hmm.
is to find out, to discover, truly discover, and try to get into the heart and the mind of that person. Not that they're going to convince you to go away from Christianity. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm
Right.
talking about to truly discover why people
Mm-hmm.
vote the way they vote, think the way they think, whatever.
That's right.
And then we become more effective in, first of all, we become less manipulated by the media. If you understand which hill am I going to die on, I'm going to die on the hill of reconciliation, of unity,
There you
not
go.
division.
All right.
And I refuse to be caught up in the division of the world. I think that's the message here tonight. Hallelujah.
Yes, sir.
Brother Stowe, why don't you close us in prayer tonight?
Right.
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to talk together tonight. Lord, help us to be more like you, to show the love and compassion and mercy that you've shown to us. And Lord, not to judge and not to argue and not to fuss, but just to share one another's hearts together, that we may be have a way to help one another. And I know that there's been good people that you've sent in my life, and you've sent good people in all of our lives. And Lord, but there's times when we have to learn how to get along with somebody that doesn't want to get along with them. But Lord, I know that the love conquers all. And I just pray that you would give us that genuine love and compassion for the lost, for people, no matter what. God, that they can say there's something different about them. And when they begin to think about it, they say they must walk with Jesus. Because, Lord, at the end of the day, it's all about you. We thank you for it, Lord, in the name of Jesus.